friends, I'm Amy, your sewing teacher, and I'm here today to do some more sewing hacks. The reason why I'm going to talk about sewing hacks again is because over the last week or so, my last hack video has gone huge, and I want to thank you so very much for watching that one and for subscribing to my channel. So as a thank you, I'm doing another sewing hacks one. Now this one isn't a trip to the dollar store. The other one was $15 store sewing hacks for $40. And this time it's just organizational sewing hacks for the sewing room and things that come in handy that you can use when you're sewing other than the traditional sewing notions. And I'm a high school teacher, so we don't have much budget in our department, so I'm really good about finding really budget-wise things that we can do to make our sewing journeys a little bit better. One of the things that I do is I make my students reuse all of the patterns. We have hundreds of patterns. Many of them I've purchased, but many of them were donated to the department also. And in order for us to reuse and reuse and reuse them, we don't cut our patterns ever. The kids know that's a big no-no. So we use tracing paper. Now this is traditional tracing paper from the art store. One of these tubes is pretty substantial. It cost me about $20 or so for a tube of tracing paper. Pretty crunchy, but the kids can see through it really well, and that's what they trace with. This year, I smartened up. I went on Amazon.com, and this is not sponsored in any way, but I went on Amazon, and for $70, I got 10 rolls of this fantastic paper. It's not as crunchy as the traditional tracing paper, but it is just as see-through. Now this is, believe it or not, the paper that goes on the doctor's office beds. You know how every time a new patient comes in, they pull it and they rip it and they scrunch it up and throw it away? This is that paper, and it's cheap. I got 10 of these rolls for $70, and that's like way better than this. So huge cost savings there. So that's my first tip of today. The second tip for today is not necessarily actually it is budget saving, because you can actually save a load of your fabric by using this. So I want to talk today about die catchers. There's these die catchers. These ones are made by Unique, and they're a sewing product, but there is in quite a few grocery stores in the laundry aisle, you can find these die catchers. Now the die catchers are really important for when you are pre-washing your fabrics, because when you pre-wash your fabrics in the color runs, if you have one of these in the laundry, then it may catch all of the dye and it won't go on to other fabrics. That's something I always keep in my sewing room also. The next thing I want to talk about is thread. And there's many ways that you can save money when it comes to thread. Being that my classroom, my budget is about $7 per student per semester, I can't spend, $3 or $4 on a thread that has 110 yards or a thread that has 800 yards, because that's not enough. I need to spread my budget more. So what I do is I buy my serger thread, and I use comb thread for a regular sewing machine. Now this comb thread's not gonna work on the top of your sewing machine. It doesn't. But there are these really fantastic comb thread holders that you can use. You put them on the base, and then you string your thread up and over and then through your machine. And these are really fantastic. If you're running a double needle, you can have 2 threads in it and up and then through the machine. And this is one that I purchased at the sewing store. But again, I'm budget friendly, budget wise. So I had the wood shop at the school make these for my students. So all they did was took a block of wood and a small piece of thick gauge wire, and you could use a wire hanger if you would like. And then we did a tall one with a little indent. You can see here that's an indent for the thread. And again, it just sits on top like this, and make sure it's sitting flat, and then your thread goes up and over and then through the eye in your machine, and then you thread your machine like normal. And these didn't cost me more than $20, and I had them make about 30 of them. So my whole classroom uses these ones. The next thing I want to talk about when it comes to thread is the bobbin. Bobbin storage is never anyone's friend. There are so many ways that we can store our bobbins, and a lot of people will make their bobbin and then they will throw them in a bin and all of the threads will get tied up. But when I need a bobbin, I like to be able to just reach up for the thread and have the bobbin attached. So what I do is I pull the bobbin out of the machine when I'm using my thread. I put a pin with a pearl head on the top of the cone, and then I leave the bobbin with the thread that I used. And this makes life so much easier when I am looking for the next thread I'm using and I have a bobbin created. And see, this one actually has 2 bobbins. It looks like little ears. And it's neat and tidy, and I just put them all up on my thread shelf, and when I'm ready, my bobbin's there and so is my thread. The next thing I'm going to talk about is marking fabric. So when we mark fabric, there's all sorts of things we can use. We can use a special fabric pencil, and that has a special lead that will wash out. It's water soluble, so it'll wash out. We could use a heat soluble pen, like the friction pen, and then when we iron over it, it will make the marking disappear. But these things cost money, so I try to go with what costs the least amount of money. So at school, we had a whole bunch of old closets that got cleaned out, and in those old closets, we found old colored chalk. And so my students use a stick of old colored chalk, and like we have really weird colors, like you would not believe some of the colors. And really, we don't use colored chalk as much anymore. So even if you wanted to buy colored chalk, it's actually still quite cheap, especially if you're someplace like the dollar store, and you can use the colors when you're using white or other colors. And that's quite sensible and very budget friendly. Now the next thing, which is basically free to you, which is really awesome, is, believe it or not, and I collect these and people think I'm really weird, the ends of your soap when you're done in the shower and you don't have any soap left. One of the things that I like to do is take the soaps out, wash them off, and then let them sit and dry. And the students use the soap. It's really great because you can get your hands on it and you run it along your fabric. It's so smooth to mark with. And you run it along the fabric, and then when you wash the garment the first time, the soap washes right out, and it's great, and it was free. So I collect them. This is a bag of them that's ready to go to school. And my students just take a piece of soap and we use the soap, and that's it. It's free. It's awesome. So that's another great tip. The next thing I want to talk about is organization of little bits and bobs. So I do a lot of bag making, and I have all of these like little things that I use, hardware on the bags, and they all come in their own little baggie, and it's hard to keep track of it all. So what I do is I go to the dollar store and I buy a hardware divider. It's a little case, and in the case it has removable sections, and you can make the sections any size you want and then put your items in. So as you see here, this one is bag hardware. I have my anchors and my D-rings and my shoulder adjustments and bigger ones and all sorts of things. So I keep it like this. I have one of these for eyelets, I have one of these for rivets, and I just slide them right underneath my storage shelf, and they're out of the way all the time. And again, dollar store, $3, can't beat it, and things are nice and organized. Now the last tip for today that I'd like to talk about is how I store needles. So what I've done is I've taken just a dollar store tin, and I've put the address card separators. So we have address card separators, just like this. They have the N on them. These ones are made by Oxford, but you can buy, some dollar stores will have them also. And then what I do is I put all of the different needles by section, and then I label each section. So as you can see, I have all my needles in one place and I never forget about them. So those are all the tips and tricks today, all of the hacks for sewing and all of the hacks for the sewing room that I have for you today. Again, thank you so very much for making my last sewing hacks. I'm going to put it in the cards right here just in case you didn't watch it. But thank you so much for the success of that last one. And please, if you like this one, please thumbs up, maybe subscribe, maybe in the bottom give me a comment of some other things you'd like to see me do, or comment some sewing hacks that you have. That would be great. I'd really love to hear from you. Please join me next Sunday. You never know whose journey we're going to be on. It could be my sewing journey. Maybe it's my kids. Maybe it's my students. Maybe it's yours. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next Sunday.